Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of Tanks with the mighty Jingles. So, apparently that Circon fella managed to tear himself away from Red Dead Redemption 2 on his PlayStation 4 for long enough to remember that he's a World of Tanks player. I don't know, personally I think it's shocking. What is the state of the PC gaming master race coming to when somebody like Circon spends more time streaming Red Dead Redemption on the PlayStation 4 than playing a good, honest PC title like World of Tanks? Disgraceful state of affairs. You'd never catch me doing it. Yes, anyway, moving on swiftly. Today, Circon finds himself in a Tier 10 battle on the Siegfried Line map in the Tier 8 Soviet heavy tank, the ISM. Strange looking bugger. Rear mounted turret. It's like they got the tank back to front. Makes it very good at side-scraping, of course, which is going to come in very handy in this battle. It's got 120mm of side armour, and that rear-mounted turret allows you to side-scrape very, very nicely. Luckily, it's not the stock turret, which only has 100mm of armour. The upgraded turret here has 250. The gun, however, not particularly good. A little bit better than the stock gun, which is basically the gun that you get on the IS at Tier 7, but not that much better. The 212mm of penetration is at least good enough to slap a shell through the side of an AMX-65's turret, but that AMX is about to be the very least of Circon problems. As a wild Chinese Tier 10 medium tank appears, thinking to himself, aha, a Tier 8, I will feast upon his tiers. So not the greatest start. You're in a Tier 8 heavy tank in a Tier 10 battle, and already the Tier 10s are picking on you. Now, Circon gun depression is so bad that he's having to aim for weak spots on the top of the turret, but the Chinese tank's gun depression is equally disastrous, and he's forced to back off in order to get shots into the hull. But doing that allows Circon to inflict a fair amount of damage on him in return. In fact, given that it was a 2-on-1 there, and one of those was a Tier 10, I think Circon definitely got the better part of the deal there. The 1-2-1 has not had a particularly good match. And considering he's a top tier medium, that's an incredibly bad start for him. He clearly thought to himself, oh look, a Tier 8, yeah, this is going to be easy. Don't think so. The AMX-65 has received a bit of a spanking as well. Unfortunately, the proximity of that AMX-65 is keeping Circon permanently spotted, and he can't really get out of here with that 1-2-1 lurking around on the corner, waiting for him to do just that. They're both a one-shot kill for each other, and the 1-2-1's gun is significantly better. The ISM's gun is horrifically inaccurate. And while it does have better penetration than the stock gun, which only has 175, 212mm of penetration is absolutely nothing special in a Tier 10 game. The gold ammo on this tank isn't that much better. With 240mm of penetration, it's only 28mm more, and he doesn't have a huge amount of it. His ammunition loadout is almost exclusively standard armour-piercing with a couple of rounds of high explosive for close encounters. Okay, the team have managed to pull back 2 kills, but which tanks they've killed is more important than the number of tanks they've killed. The 1-2-1 and the AMX-65 have both been dealt with, which means Circon is now free, to a limited extent, to manoeuvre. And this is where he starts to show off the true strength of this tank, side-scraping around a corner on a city map. And there are a number of factors that make this tank so good at side-scraping. Predominantly, it's that rear-mounted turret. He's able to pull back, while angled, sufficiently to get shots around the corner without exposing any of his vulnerable lower glacis. In a traditional tank with a centre or front-mounted turret, you just wouldn't be able to do that. He'd still be reasonably safe, but anybody with a gun with any kind of accuracy would be able to take shots into your vulnerable lower plate as you try to pull back and snipe around the corner. A tank with a rear-mounted turret, that is not the case. Another not insignificant factor is the amount of side armour that this tank has, 120mm. And that's important when it comes to the armour overmatching mechanics, because basically there isn't a gun in the game that can overmatch 120mm of armour. In fact, there isn't a gun in the game that can partially overmatch 120mm of armour. You see, it's all down to the thickness of the armour, the calibre of the gun shooting at you, and the angle of the armour. If you're angling at 70 degrees, which he is doing here, that side armour is an automatic bounce. It just cannot be penetrated. If he had less side armour, in a Carnarvon for example, with its 50mm of side armour, you just can't side-scrape effectively in that tank. A 105mm gun will get a partial overmatch on your side armour, and a 152mm gun or higher will cut through that side armour regardless of angle, as if it wasn't even there. You don't get that in the ISM with 120mm of side armour. In fact, the T28 has learned pretty fast. He's already given up trying to penetrate the side and is in fact now firing high explosive. Of course, that's exactly what Circumflexes was doing to him as well. Because this gun is just not accurate enough to hit the weak spots at the front on the lower plate of a T28, and he'd run out of premium ammunition, so he was actually using high explosive on the T28 himself there. So the team are winning. He's now free to manoeuvre fully. He hasn't actually killed anything yet, but he has done 2,500 damage. 1,500 of it to an enemy tier 10 tank. Of course, now he only has 26 health remaining, and that's been a fairly costly game for him so far. He didn't have a lot of gold ammo to begin with, and he's got none left now. So now the challenge is to see if he can do any more damage and just survive until the end of the match. Luckily, the wreck of that 121 over there is going to prove to be very, very useful, as is his 250mm of turret armour. Has to be careful though, because there is an Emule 2 down in that direction as well, and he hasn't had a lot of luck against this Jagdtiger. Again, it's the horrifically bad .43 accuracy of this gun. Shooting at the front of a Jagdtiger with 212mm of penetration means you pretty much have to hit the lower glacis, which he is actually managing to do, and has managed to avoid all of the Jagdtiger's return fire. Artillery are targeting him now. He has been stunned and is undoubtedly pulling back. He has very little health remaining, and he's dead. Gorilla 15 and a mouse down in that direction. Don't let the scores fool you here. The team are winning 9 kills to 6, but if you just look at the health bars of the surviving tanks, nobody has a huge amount of health left. Not least of which Circumflexes here with his 26 health remaining, but you could always argue that 26 health is 25 more health than you actually need. Still, it's nice to have that extra insurance that a large health pool provides. The mouse has a lot of health remaining, but there's a lot of tanks here queuing up for shots at him, and the Batchat's going for it, but he's making an awful mess of it. I don't know if that was a worthy trade. And he is in fact grinding himself to death on the side of the mouse, still while he's occupied. Circumflexes puts a shot into him, the T-34 comes out, and he has hardly any health remaining either. The enemy team is starting to pull it back. Another shot into the rear of the mouse, but his 128mm gun is going to be reloaded very soon. Nope. Make him choose. There, he's fluffed the shot. Right, T-34 should be able to claim the kill. It's got a slow reloading gun, but he's had plenty of time. Yep, the mouse is dead. Just 3 enemy tanks remaining. But once again, hardly anybody on Circumflex's team has any health remaining. They've got more guns between them than the enemy team, but hardly any of them can afford to take a single hit. That's not true of the enemy team. AMX-30 down there still has a fair amount of health remaining, although he did just take a hit from something, and a fairly substantial one. I suppose on the good side, if you're firing this gun at an AMX-30, you don't have to be particularly accurate, which is just as well because the gun isn't. The AMX-30 is not exactly over-endowed with a surplus of armour. You can pretty much just hit it anywhere and it's going to do some damage. Horrifically long aiming time on this gun though. Of course, at this stage of the game with just 3 enemy tanks left, you have to assume that they're going to be loading the gold, and the AMX-30's gold is high explosive anti-tank. Oh, hang on a second. What's he aiming at? There's nothing there. Well, there is actually, you just can't see it because it's outside of render range. He snapped a shot off down the line of bearing at the located position of the enemy artillery in the corner of the map. Doesn't appear to have hit him or he would have been dead. This is a 390 average damage gun after all. And in fact, their Batchat has finished him off. Just the 2 enemy tanks remaining. T-34 is feeling very brave. I wouldn't be feeling that brave if I had the amount of health remaining that he does. I'm pretty sure the AMX-30 has far better gun handling than the T-34 and will probably get the first shot off. Okay. Still, the T-34 did at least spot him, and now he seems to be aiming his gun at the Batchat in the middle of the field, and that's the only excuse Circon needs. And there's his, well, that's actually his first kill. Over 5,000 damage in a tier 8 heavy in a tier 10 battle, and he's only got 1 kill to his name. The man's been robbed, I tell you. Robbed! Last enemy tank spotted, cowering in the corner of the map. Unfortunately, the horrific aiming time on this machine means that Circon isn't adding any more damage to his total, so he's just going to have to be happy with doing over 5,000 damage in a tier 8 heavy in a tier 10 battle after losing almost all of his health in the first few minutes of the game. You'll be pleased to hear that I think he's finished Red Dead Redemption 2, so he's back to streaming World of Tanks on Twitch on a regular basis. as a proud card-carrying member of the PC Gaming Master Race should. You can find the link to his Twitch channel down below in the video description. In the meantime, I hope you enjoyed today's video, and as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.